Hello, it's 10 years of TAW. It's John Gibbons and with Neil Atkinson, and this is the show when we look back at 10 years at the Anfield Wrap with the use and with the help of images from that story. So some of those images will tell a story in itself. Some of those images will lead on to stories that we can tell, and will hopefully give you a bit of a rundown of how we sort of got to where we are now. So Neil Atkinson, you've lived all 10 years of the 10 years of TAW. Does it feel longer? Does it feel shorter? Or does it depend on the day?
Right now it feels longer because this is not my ideal setup. There's been a lot of chat about the 10 years of the Anfield Wrap in a lot of different ways, and most of the time I have to sort of excuse myself from the room and let other people talk about it, because all of this just makes me... there's very few shows I'm nervous for, and I would describe myself as having been a bag of nerves about this one all day. So, you know, if you want to just sort of get stuck in, and then maybe I will be very into a pint once I've finished this. I spent the whole day thinking you've got to do this thing later on. Don't be mental. Don't be really, really mad on it. So let's just see how I get on.
Let's just see how we get on. Let's go through it. I think you'll enjoy it. Although I'm quite enjoying having the upper hand of knowing what these images are. But This is the first one. And this is from Park Street. You were the very first host of the Anfield Wrap, and you remain the main host of the Anfield Wrap, certainly of the free show. How were you in those early days?
Rubbish, but sort of found a way through it at different times, and I suspect we'll come on to bits of that. It was a great, we were doing it at 10 o'clock on a Monday, so I'd have to run down from work. So I'd actually start work at 7 in order to be able to make the time up, because you never knew quite how long it was going to last in the grand scheme of things, the show itself. So it wasn't like it was just, it's just your lunch. I wanted to make sure I had extra time within there as well. So they were long days, those Mondays. But, you got Tony Barrett there and Chris Walsh in the background. Got to know a lot of people and sort of meet a lot of people and start this thing with a lot of people, all being around and understanding it. And I think that was, really, really important. Rich produced this at Park Street, 10 a.m. on a Monday, and Rich was great. Andy and Gareth worked hard to get the sort of 10 a.m. slot out of that, and Ian and Jim as well, were there or thereabouts in all of that process. And I think it made a big difference, things being all in the same room. Yeah. I think that's the big, that was one of the big shifts. The idea that the games happened on Saturday or Sunday, you're there on a Monday at 10 a.m. and you're doing the business and you're talking about it, and you've got that sort of feel because you can see everyone. And even now that, we've just lived through 18 months with a lot of Zooms, and Zooms, at least you can see faces, but we've learned it's still not the same. And I think that the more that you can sort of have all in the same room, I think it makes a massive difference. And it was a great thing to sort of do. It was loads of mad moments in there. There was the day when Rafa turned up, and that was one where I knew he was coming, but a lot of other people in the room didn't. There was just lots of getting Timo and Albertina in. I remember that one really, really fondly. And there was just everyone sort of trying to work out what the voice was, and I was doing that as well, in there. And one of the things Andy always said to me was, he said, "You've got to enjoy it and you've got to be you." And he was really clear on that, Andy, from the outset. I'm asking you to do this because I want you to be you. I don't just want you to be a bit of a host. And working that out over a period of time, I always prefer learning by doing, and the Anfield Wrap then was doing.
Here's another guest who came in quite early. This is Didi Haman with a really interesting selection of people.
Absolutely.
So I'm there sharing time because I was similar to you, running up sort of from work. So you're behind me. Chris Roll's there again. There's Andy who snuck. Debbie, Laura used to bring cakes and stuff. Rob Gutman enjoying a cake. Neil Fitzmaurice, obviously Didi Haman there on the drums. Very fresh face looking Mike Gerlin. And Robbo there appearing behind Richie you talked about, and Jim Borman.
Robbo looks really young there.
Yeah. I think he's the way he's peering behind Rich.
I like that, genuinely. I tell you what, Mike's aged well. He looks fabulous at the moment. I'm not too sure about 2011-12, Mike Gerling there. He looks fabulous at the moment, Mike. He's really, really aged well. This is a really good example of the thing I said before about needing to leave excess time, because I think Neil was sort of bringing Diddy to the party with Debbie, and Diddy was really, really late. Yeah. So by the time they got there, I was like, oh, come on, because I've got to get back to work here. Everyone's got different lives going on. You'll have been in the same boat as well. Yeah. I've said I've got to be back at a certain time. Yeah, it was. I like the look of Rich there as well. You seen Rich recently?
No, I haven't. He's doing really well, isn't he, in his professional life?
Yeah.
He's really kicked on since producing us.
Yeah. He now works with some of the greats. No, he's doing brilliantly. I bumped into him the other day. We had a lovely chat, and it was great to actually just sort of catch up for 10 minutes on the street. In that sort of way, also, yeah, just haven't seen people in general for ages, but he was absolutely buzzing. And he was dead pleased for us as well. You know, there'd be a bit of friction sometimes with Rich, and I think with Andy, you know, because Rich that was on the clock and all of this sort of stuff, and Andy was trying to drag it out a little bit. But Rich did care about us, and he did do the very best he could for us for 2 or 3 years in there. You know, he did do really, really well, and it all worked. And you know, I'm really pleased to see Rich doing well, and obviously, you know, we've done well as well.
Yep. Okay. We'll move on to this next one. This is from FSF Awards. You've got a complicated relationship with awards and awards nights, I think it is fair to say.
I'm with the Football Supporters Federation or the Football Supporters Association as well. So the FSF Awards are somewhat emotionally charged as far as I'm concerned. You can see Mike Gale in there growing into himself, looking fabulous, which is nice to see. Yeah, I don't like awards, and there's loads of reasons why I don't like awards, and it's in part the reason why I'm a bit nervous about this. You know, I'm in the best possible way. I'm always sort of very focused on, well, what's the next thing and what have you done for me lately? And I like to think our sort of customers / listeners / supporters, in a sense, all feel a bit similarly. You know, I do sort of, again, it's what are you going to do tomorrow? And I suspect at times that makes me quite difficult to work with and possibly even also to live with. It is, you know, I think it's important to sort of have that. And I think within, like, I think our podcasts and videos now and have done for ages, I think they're absolutely tremendous, don't get me wrong. I think that one might have been when we were doing the radio show, and our radio show was a brilliant radio show. But I do feel it is, you know, it's difficult. One year we don't win an FSF award and the Hull lads win it, and the Nectar. They were great, the Hull lads. You know, I remember Les, and they're packed in now, and there's loads of reasons why they're packed in. I think one of the reasons why was it's been a bit miserable at times supporting Hull. I don't think you can really measure whether or not the Anfield Wrap and all it does is better than what the Hull lads do. Yeah. And also there's a part of all of that where it is a bit of gerrymandering. It's like, well, we get the vote out. If we decide to get the vote out, we get the vote out. Yeah. Because we've got so many listeners. And thank you to people who do vote for us. But I always feel a little bit, and then the whole evening of things like that understandably, because they are award ceremonies, and this is me saying, I didn't want to come across like I'm mental, this is me being mental. They're remarkably congratulatory, and if you're not careful, I feel as though it can all come off just a little bit smug. You know, there's the graft of it, and the other thing that used to really wind me up about the FSF Awards is it'd be at a time when we're dead busy. Yeah, Monday night in London in December, there's a game on Wednesday, and there's been a game on Saturday, and all this sort of stuff, and it was always in London as well. They couldn't tour it around the country, so that used to get me go. Everything used to get me go, to be honest with you. I'd like to think if it went down now, I wouldn't kick off on everybody. Because you'll say, I mean, it isn't I do, you know, everyone in the Anfield Wrap, like Andy's got a bit of a reputation because the way he is on Twitter, you know, Garrett's got a bit of a reputation as well. There is a bit of a thing that quietly I am probably the biggest narc and definitely the biggest maniac, especially at things like this. So yeah, there'd be like FSA awards or FSF awards or other awards or other bits and pieces where there'd be like, I'd sit down at a table, the awards are all finished and it's about 11 o'clock and I'd see some poor lad thinking, oh, not this fella now. I had him an hour ago, and he's come back for more. And I'd like to take this opportunity, if these people see it, to apologise for those people. I am amongst the worst humans alive.
Glad we did that. This isn't a great picture, so I'm sorry. There's surprisingly few pictures of us doing radio, but I wanted to include a picture of us doing radio. So that is a bit of a grainy image of us in the Radio City Tower, which I just wanted to include because I loved it. We used to do live radio 5 o'clock on a Friday, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was the best thing you could ever do. I was saying before about comparing yourself, and you can be a bit berserk. My position with what we were doing at 5 o'clock on City Talk was I wanted us to be better than PM on Radio 4. Like, PM on Radio 4 is the 5 o'clock definitive show. I wanted us to be better than what was on Radio 1. I wanted to be better than what was on Radio 2. I wanted to be better than what was on Merseyside. I wanted it to be the best hour of live radio anyone could possibly manage to do. And a lot of the time, I am genuinely of the view we managed it. You know, it was, for me, and still now, if, you know, I've got some stuff I want to go and do this afternoon, but if someone rang me up and went, do you and John want to go and do 2 hours live on X? I'd be like, John, fuck this off. We're going now. And just go and do it. I wouldn't even want money for it. The idea of being able to, with radio, you can just paint pictures all the time and you can take people into a certain direction and you can go down meandering paths, and City Talk let us do that. I mean, it's unbelievable what we got away with on City Talk in lots of ways. But I think they understood that what we were getting away with, it had so much passion and drive and entertainment value to it. There's the mad thing about Ian McGarry, which is berserk to think we did what we did around the Ian McGarry thing. We just did the middle of a show taking the piss out of Ian McGarry, and he may never have even heard it or known about it, but he'd just been ridiculous on social the night before, and we decided we were going to do that. There was the time the Suarez thing came in after he bit Ivanovic, and we did that report live, me, you and Ben, and that literally came out like an hour before. And part of the adrenaline of the whole thing was me and you like leaving work, which is the end of town we're currently in, but at 4:45, needing to get into the tower, up to the tower and go live. And the number of times it'd be like 4:59 or 56, and you go live on, and the fact that I know this and remember it, you go live, or one period it was 5:00:17, and another period it was 5:00:23, and what a 6 seconds they were. And you'd walk into the door as like it's on 5:00:05. Downey, it was great, and must have both, I think he both loved us and was infuriated by us in equal measure at times. We would have everything prepped, and you'd sort of swing into the seat and you'd sit down and you'd go live on City Talk. It is the Anfield Wrap coming at you at 5 o'clock on a Friday, Liverpool this weekend, and you'd be there, but the blood would be pumping because you've just legged it to the tower, and every bit of it was just terrific, really, and I wouldn't change any of it. And talking before about, what was it like at first, I think the big thing that's still, sessions we did talking to Steve Hoddesall and giving us suggestions, try this, do this way, and all that sort of stuff. I think we are really good at this, and so give us all the awards, I suppose. But I think a massive part of the reason why is we managed to bring lots of the really cool, weird bits of podcast into live radio, and we've managed to bring a lot of what's live radio into podcasting. And even now, the big thing for me is every single show we do, just try and do it as live. Just try and do it as live and try to have that live energy. And for me, that's you'll never quite have the same live energy as when you know. And the brilliant thing about the tower is the psychology of it. You're in the signal doesn't come out the top of the tower, but you feel like it does.
And you can see the people you're broadcasting to, like they're driving home, and you can see them.
Yeah, you can look out and you can see it, and all the other stuff we did in there as well, the rider with Adam and Steph, all of that, those... I used to do Monday night as well, and Tuesday morning in City Talk with Mick and Steve, and Mick is just a consummate pro. He's brilliant at what he does. Steve is, to me, it's berserk that, Steve Hoddesall isn't a nationwide name. He's tremendous, and to work with those people, and there's still, even now, when I go and talk to Tilsley, he talks about City as it was, and this thing of it as a breeding ground, but it was for us. Yeah, we got that, and it's gone now, City Talk in that form. And I think it is a real shame in lots of ways, and not just because we don't get to mess about on the radio. I think the idea, we got Lizzie from there in the end, and the idea of, the more places that there are where people can cut their teeth and experiment and see what works, and think about what you do a little bit differently next week, and then be able to battle in. We were doing this 13, 14. We were live on the radio when Liverpool were going for the title, and the pounding of those drums, and we're there 5 o'clock on a Friday going, just settle down, this is the first hour of the best weekend of your life. It's the Anfield Wrap, and this is what we're bringing to you. It was brilliant, and it was a real way to sort of find yourself, and you and I shared that more than anyone else, and we were so lucky to, and I'm pleased I got to share it with you, because a massive part of it was you coming in and saying, you can't enjoy this enough, enjoy this more, and then getting to do that with live radio. Christ almighty, as I say, I would go now, let them ring me. Let them ring me now.
I knew you'd enjoy that one. I'm glad it did it. I really like this picture. I remember being really proud that there was a football team of us working on the Anfield Wrap. Now, the Anfield Wrap's always been a bit of a sort of a cast of not quite thousands, but certainly hundreds. So there's a lot of people, from day one who've been sort of involved in things. We cheated a little bit here, Rob, because Rob never has been technically a full-time member of staff, but is obviously a huge part of what we do.
And just loads.
But when there was 11, I remember insisting on this picture with a few awards, a few bottles of wine, and a couple of people there who've moved on. Obviously, Master's Sean, but quite a few who are still with us as well.
Yeah, almost everybody's still with us, and I'm glad that there is a thing there where I think everybody in different ways does look quite proud. That's nice, and that's a good thing. This is when we were in Walker House. Yeah. And Walker House was great for us. We were originally in London Road, in that mad office where we all had to face the wall, and we couldn't, but with the strangely huge circular table. And that was great, you know what I mean? London Road was our first office, and I still remember a lot of the work we did there when we were first sort of going to the idea we were full-time properly. It was great, and it was a really bold thing to do. But Laduma/Red Touch Media had invited us into their office, and it was an invite. They were so gracious and kind to us. They shared the space with us, and trust me, we weren't paying them any money. We didn't know we were born, if I'm honest with you, John.
100%.
You know, it's slap bang in the city centre, in Exchange Flags, in the business district, and we've got this space, and we're bringing, you know, they had a thriving business and a good business, but we've got the business where, like, you know, there's people turning up all the time. So the space almost felt as though, you know, it was as much ours and it was theirs, and it wasn't, but they were really sound about it. Everyone there at Red Touch, you know, Wayne, Ben, Ian, you know, everyone who was there was just really, really generous with themselves about it and with the whole thing, and we owe them a great deal, really. And even now, you know, we've just come through the pandemic, and, you know, there's a period of time during the pandemic, it's a little bit less now, but where, like, I was talking to Wayne for advice and support every week, and the advice and support couldn't have been better. And a lot of it was, you're doing fine, hold the line, this is right, do you know what I mean? But having someone say that to you, it's really, really important. And you know, certainly when you're not someone who's run a business, which, you know, I never really, you know, it's not like I've gone and done an MBA and then done this, do you know what I mean? It's like sort of trying to work out what it is and what we're doing as we're going a lot of the time. So having someone who's got that experience and offers that support, you know, it's been great, and that's still ongoing, and it's ongoing in Utah as well. Dave Hubbard too, and Colin Zito, you know, there's been people there who've been, you know, really, really kind and supportive to us. And this period here was when, you know, we went from being a bit of a startup that might just work to actually being a proper business. And if it hadn't been for that sort of that support and what we got from Walker House, I'd like to think we would have got there in the end, but the road would have been a lot longer, and there wouldn't have been that many people, frankly, because we weren't paying for the space, we could pay for the people. And that's always been the thing with us. And even now, you know, I'm not asking people on this to go and look at the Anfield Wrap books. I mean, I'm very transparent, but I'm not that transparent. But what we pay for is people, and I'm still proud of that. And, you know, you look now, there's 14 up there, 14, and people like Rob and all the contributors who come in, they've been so important to us. But Walker House it was almost like an injection. It was, you know, the thing now where they say, oh, City are financially doped, Walker House financially doped the Anfield Wrap, I think.
Absolutely. There was a little studio behind us there. We used to do stuff in there as well. It was a brilliant home. Can I ask you briefly about our head of operations as well, who's on that picture?
Yeah.
Just to embarrass her.
Well, yeah, embarrass away. Emma, again, in terms of that idea of the metaphor of doping, financially doping into the Anfield Wrap, Emma, the same thing around so many bits of our professionalism. I think actually, a good example of it is if you just see behind Gareth there's a health and safety at the workplace poster. You know, things like that are what Emma has brought to us, while simultaneously not saying don't enjoy this. If anything, saying enjoy it more. You know, there's the inscription, which I'm really proud we did, me and Josh, a bit moody, on the front of, I'm getting upset, on the front of number 6 was Rave Safe Tuckies, which is what Emma says. And the thing with Emma is the idea that, I'm getting upset, and I told you I didn't want to do this, it's all right, is the idea of, like, Emma is very much go and enjoy yourself, but let's make sure everything else is sorted, belt and braces, and the number of stuff that we get to do because Emma's sorted it, where you and me can go and enjoy it, Gareth can go and enjoy it, Andy can go and enjoy it, but we know the base is behind us. That's that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll move on before I lose you. This is one of many pictures of you and us and Jurgen Klopp, but I wanted to particularly talk about your relationship with Jurgen. You've interviewed him a lot. I feel like you might be coming John Keefe to Shankly, and that you'll be wheeled out in years to come, asked what you thought of him. But yeah, you've spent a lot of time with Jurgen. I think he genuinely likes you.
I hope he genuinely likes me, but he might just be being polite. There's a fighting chance he is just being polite, and he acts like that with all the girls. He
doesn't, by the way.
Well,
quite a lot of them he hates the guts. I've seen. I've been to press conferences.
I think he likes me more than Mike Hughes, and we'll start from there, and we'll move ourselves upwards. I'm very. It's great to get to speak to him and spend time with him, and the fact that he is generous. I do ever so slightly like the fact that the one thing I think he thinks is when I interview him, or we interview him, and both, is I think there's a bit of him where he's like, I don't know what's going to happen next year. And I think that's good. I don't know what this fella's going to ask me next. He could go anywhere. He could say anything in a minute. All these people could all just ask me about some mad game that I've half forgotten, but they're enthusiastic about. Whereas it's not going to be, what do you think of the Grealish transfer? Do you know what I mean? Or whatever it is that he's getting in press conferences at the moment. It's not going to be someone who's looking for the obvious line where he can, to not slaughter Mike Hughes. And if Mike, you're watching, sorry, I get the impression Jurgen, part of the thing with all that is Mike's always about the 5th question. And Jurgen probably feels as though I could have written the first 4 questions and I know exactly what you're about to say. And then from there, all that. And I think that's a big thing. And I haven't sort of seen him. We got to see him socially at that Milner fundraiser, which was great in loads of ways, and people were so so polite and kind and open with us that night. But what was interesting was Jürgen came over, he did pictures, he then saw us again, he chatted to us again, and I've always talked about this one little moment when the night was sort of finished and everyone was dancing, and like our crew were like minesweeping stuff off tables and all this sort of stuff, and we're having this big party and there's all the young people there and they're just all dancing and they don't care. Jürgen's just there, like he's where Jordan sat right now, and Jürgen's just there and no one cares.
Yeah.
But Jürgen's been harassed all night, and he sort of caught my eye as I was, I think, literally drinking from a bottle of vodka, and he sort of caught my eye, and he was smiling, he was nodding and all this sort of stuff, and I was sort of like gesturing towards, they're all yours, aren't they? Who were like that, and I was like, yeah, this is us, mate.
Yeah.
And I think he likes that, and I think he likes the young people, and I think he loves the enthusiasm, and I think I'd like to think the thing he sees is a lot of what he wants, which is everybody right behind this thing, all in together, all loving it. I'd like to think he gets to see that in us, both when he speaks to us all, me, you, Craig, Gareth, Andy, whoever he speaks to. I think he likes to get that then, but I think he also knows that that's what the vibe of the whole thing's about, and lots of people at Liverpool, I'd like to think, do tell him that as well, and that's another reason why there's warmth.
Yeah, okay. We'll move on from Jürgen.
Hot that day, wasn't it?
It was hot. That's mainly what I want to talk about. We went over to the States and we did some live stuff on stages, and we did some stuff in fan parks, and we did some stuff, literally in car parks and things like that. This was a warm one.
It was so hot. It was also
blistering. I was
blistering.
worried about my laptop.
Yeah, your laptop was struggling. The DJ thing was struggling, and it was about 35 degrees, and there was no cover. We were on, and the other thing that happened was Liverpool's legends were late.
Yeah.
So
so we did ages.
So we did about an hour and a half, and you were saying to me, have you got enough? Because we decided to do these shows a little bit differently after when we went to Kiev, because we had to find a way to do it in a bit of a similar way, at least to what Jamie just absolutely nails and does far better than we do. But we wanted to bring music and noise, and you were like, have you got enough? And I was like, John, I think I've got a sort of 10 or 11 5 minutes in my head about talking about different things when Liverpool were European champions. And it was funny because that was the first one, and it was like, so you think you got about 10, 11 of these? Well, you're going to do them all now. We're going to find out if you've got them or not. You're going to do them all now. And it was challenging, to say the least. The sweat was absolutely pouring off me. I was bright red by the end of it, and by then going, because the other thing that we love to do when we go to the States is tailgating. Yeah. And so we then tried to go and do the tailgate, and it was a bit tough to find it, actually, I think, in that one, because it was such a huge thing, the whole sort of sports thing. But yeah, that was, what have I got in my hand there?
It's a drink of some description.
Juice. It's not even ale, that should tell you this. Oh, they couldn't do his beer either. Yeah, so we were on for an hour and a half and they couldn't give us a drink.
Yeah, I remember that.
We had comments.
Okay, this is the House of Blues. I don't know if you've seen this picture before.
I've never seen that picture before.
I had to do some digging and find it, but that is you, and I think Craig Hannon on stage at the House of Blues. I want to talk about the live shows generally. We start off in Bray doing 500, we do 1,000 in Melbourne. This is probably the biggest. We reckon there was about 2,000 people in when we know they were, because that's how many tickets they sold, and there was people waiting to get outside in. It was a lockout, but it was a special night.
This one, House of Blues, the live shows in general, the thing about them is, there's lots of ins and outs. We were actually, I don't know when this is going up, but we were having a pint last night, weren't we, with Kev, and Kev was saying he's desperate to do one, and Milburn was talking about the time in Ireland, and when he was waiting for, like, he's going on and I go on, and then Gareth goes on, and he's like, fucking hell, Gareth's like got an act, and he's got this, and everyone's up, and everyone's buzzing about it, and then someone else goes on, and he said that Ro Cutman said to him, you're on next, John, are you funny? And he was, because what happens is that the thing about the live shows, I get more nervous for the live shows than people would think. I sort of like attack them. House of Blues are very much attacked. I started at the very back of the room with the spotlight on, ran all the way along the top and came back down on stage to entrance music and really went at the crowd. But there's loads of reasons why. One is that there's, it's 2,400 people standing. This isn't the place for tactical analysis. And I think we worked that out quite quickly in Bray and in subsequent live shows that we all did, that it's not a podcast. Our live shows aren't podcasts, and maybe there's a space for us to do more of that sort of stuff. But our live shows, I want them to feel like an event, and I want the people who are there to feel as though they could only have had it when they were in the room. And we've all got on board with that. I love almost like the classic lineup of our live show. I go on and I do the obvious sort of rows and stuff. Gareth goes on and absolutely gets in amongst it and generally slaughters Mancunians in some way, shape or form. Craig's on at some point in amongst there, and he's sort of like the voice of the overseas fan in inverted commas, even though we've sort of claimed him now to such an extent. There's another couple of people in there, and then you come on at the end, and it's very much right, here's the party. And then we do a bit of the football sort of stuff, but then all the way through, I want that feeling of, this is a party with friends, you know, it's egalitarian in the room. We don't do green rooms anymore, we don't do dressing rooms. We want to go and speak to the people all the way through, because we're not special, you know, we're good at this, but that's not the same as being special. Being good at this isn't the same as being special. When we did this one at the House of Blues, the players had been on Andy Legends, and they really struggled. And I don't mean that in a rude way. It's just the volume wasn't great. They were brilliant footballers. That's what they were. They were brilliant footballers who'd retired. We were really good performers. We didn't struggle, or we adapted to the circumstance by mostly screaming at them. But the players couldn't be heard in lots of parts, and it was all a bit edgy, and it was all a bit shuffly, and I felt sorry for the players. And then we went on and we did what we do, and it's all very, very different. And I think that's the point, really. We're not special. The footballers are special at nights like this. Jamie's special. What we're there to be is to be in amongst with all these people and to communicate that warmth and love and kindness with them.
Kiev. So this is Kiev. I've stolen this from your Twitter, so you've definitely seen it before.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a better image of the one that you've sort of chosen. Kiev was boss. You didn't want to do it.
No, I don't want to do most things. Just for the viewers, I'm inherently deeply miserable. John has to make me do stuff, or other people have to make me do stuff. I didn't want to do it, and then we sort of, I think we just crossed the channel. And I said to you, I think I've worked out how to do Kiev. And we had a bit of a chat about it. And it couldn't have worked better, really. And I think the fact that Kiev was, if we're all honest about it, a bit fucking weird. In loads of ways. There was our experience on the way to Kiev on that bloody bus, where we were 12 hours behind after about 18 hours, and I'm still not sure how we managed that. And we were always playing catch up the rest, because it felt like we were going. And we didn't have the air conditioning and all the stuff that we've talked about. And then sort of began to work Kiev out, and a lot of what we did, if we hadn't done the live radio, we couldn't have done this. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of what we do, and people, you know, probably wouldn't know, and you know, this is one of the reasons why I don't like pulling the curtain back, but in a sense, you're sort of just working it out by doing it. You know, the shows that we've done, recently we did the Football Miracles one, and everyone loves it, and I'm really pleased everyone loves it, but you know, we just sort of worked it out by doing it, what it was, and there's other bits and pieces of stuff we've done where you do it a lot, or you do it and then you go, okay, that's what this is, but it's got to be more like this next time, and that's just intuitive, because we're all good at what we do. And Kiev, the live thing, after about 10 minutes, I remember just thinking, I know exactly what we're doing here now. This is now an absolute walk in the park. And again, it had that same energy as the radio thing I told you before. We got off the bus and just walked on stage. That's what we did. We got off the bus with the gear. The rest, everyone else had to go somewhere else. A lot of our people weren't even around for this bit because they hadn't been able to get back from where the bus was. Yeah. The bus had gone to park and we just got on stage and just did it. And it was like, okay, we're going all the way in on this, and then we'll do 50 minutes and then we'll work out afterwards whether or not it was any good. And then you played Show Me Love and everyone lit the flares. and I grabbed one of the flares. And another really good thing about this is when we did that, so we go on stage to talk, and this, for me, this is a real sea change moment with the sort of the club, in that they just trusted us. Yeah. And we didn't give them any reason not to. So the House of Blues thing before was also a club event, but this is a real sort of, no one ever said, do say this, don't say this, do say this, don't say this. We just did our thing, and it went really, really well. And I think from there, more and more people at the club, you know, and it takes a bit of time, trust. More and more people at the club have worked out that they trust us, and that therefore, you know, results in us being able to do stuff like this. And you know, it's good for them, I think, that they trust us, and I think it's good for us that we've been able to be trusted while still being able to be fiercely independent. Yeah, and loads of stuff jumps out from this, not least Madrid the year after, which is 60,000 people. Yeah. I can't believe, I was very drunk from the night before. There's a moment I can remember from the night before where someone had brought basically the press to Madrid, and I had any tea, and me and you were going around and done some other bits, and it was hot, and I just had a lot of pints, and I couldn't find the loo, and there's this moment where I'm just looking for the loo in this fucking gaff that's like got video game stuff everywhere, and it's like people are telling me the loo's like, it's like, you know, in being John Malkovich where it's half a floor and everyone's going, oh, it's there, and I just couldn't find the toilet. And I can just remember sort of Ken Early and Jonathan Wilson and people like this, like the assembled press looking at me like, is this the fella from the Anfield Wrap? Is this for real? And then less than 12 hours later, in the burning sunshine, we're on live in Madrid, and I put beer all across the front so I can drink all the way through it. And then I end up sort of singing Believe in front of 60,000 people by share, mainly just to make Dan Austin happy. I didn't do it for any other fucking reason. And then going backstage feeling like I've just sort of collapsed a bit. I mean, that was a long 48 hours Madrid.
Okay, the very last one.
And
I wanted to bring it back to, not to basics, but back to the day-to-day and back to what we do every day. It's not all fan parks and football managers. This is a lovely AFQ. You've got Mr. Sean Walsh there dishing out some gin. Josh obviously there, me and Craig sharing a mic. You've got Robbo there, Robin as well. And yeah, it's a nice place to work. Yeah, we're going out, because I've got me going out jumper on. We're definitely going out. I've got me sparkly going out jumper on. So this could be like a Christmas one maybe, where we're booked in Alforno at 5. Yeah, we're going out there for certain. I wouldn't wear that jumper for any other need. I nearly wore it today, but then I remembered I was doing this and I felt it was a bit on top. We are definitely out and about. I think all of this, that's a lot of people who work with us, and the people who work with us are fantastic, and you wouldn't change any of them really, and they change themselves sometimes. Sean doesn't work with us anymore, but he was a pleasure to have around, and now Michael's up there, and Michael's a pleasure to have around. Lizzie's gone, but Harriet's here, and Lizzie's fantastic, and Harriet's fantastic, and they're different people, but they both sort of go well with us. But also within all of this as well is the contributors, and I always come back to the contributors when we do the awards thing. The one thing I'll always go on my way to say is it's easy, I think, to thank the audience, and they're also very needy. But the people who really make what we do matter to me are the contributors, and they come in and they give of themselves and they're generous and they take a couple of risks. I mean, I'm still mortified by that poor clip that got Ian Ryan slaughtered by Blues. They take a couple of risks with themselves and they give over to themselves and they become part of it, and they don't just become part of it, but they add to it. It's not like they just do our thing. They do their own thing, and that becomes part of all of our things. And I think that's a really good way to think about it. It's a really good way to be. And so those shows, for me, it's the equivalent of resetting, of getting back to what we do and back to what we're about. If the other aspects of the Anfield Wrap can get a bit tough, in some way, I'll always think just do a few shows, and then from there you'll find your way back through. It's just sort of communing back with the audience, taking the stuff I talked about with the live radio, the stuff with the people, the contributors themselves, and pulling it all together. And it's a good thing to be able to do, and we're dead lucky to do it. Did you enjoy that more than you thought you would? I wobbled big time. Didn't I? I wobbled big time. I didn't quite have a full breakdown, but I wobbled. But we've got there in the end. We have got there in the end. Thanks a lot to Neil. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I have.